Okay, so welcome everybody. Thanks for joining me, for being part of the session tonight. And I hope it's useful to you in your journey in this thing that we call mindfulness. I wanted to start with just sharing a different perspective on mindfulness, because I'm sure you've read and listened to lots of different teachings, and one thing that I'm discovering as I read and listen to other people is that there's a focus in a lot of the teachings that I think could be a little bit misleading. And the focus that I'm talking about is the emphasis on you as a person who's doing this set of practices to get somewhere. And that's what I see. A lot of teaching is marketed to get people interested in it, which is fine. We need to get people interested in it. But it gives the impression that there's a separate person within each of us who is trying to get somewhere by learning these practices and by getting better at them. Which implies, of course, that we're on this journey through time, and that we're not where we are now is not where we need to be. And so we need to change something. So what I want to emphasize tonight, and what I'll take you through a practice to explore and witness within yourself, is to actually dive into and check out the belief that there is a separate person in there, that we are this separate entity, and to discover the difference between living as a separate someone and living as no one, which sounds weird to the mind to start with. But as you experience it, you'll hopefully see what I mean. So for this exercise, you can close your eyes, you can keep them open, doesn't really matter. The important thing is that we focus and that we take our attention away from the humdrum of the thoughts that run through our minds over and over, and we place awareness on our direct experience instead. So welcome, and let's get started. So it's always helpful to just move attention inside the body to start with. So just take your attention inside this body and notice what it feels like to breathe. Just feel the body breathing in. Feel the body breathing out. Just allow breath to be as it is. Nothing to change. Nowhere to get to. Feel the breath coming and going. And just allow your attention to move back, as if you were taking a step back inside yourself and just letting your attention settle. Just in the spaciousness that's inside you. So feel the breath coming into that space and going out of that space. And be aware of the space itself. So as you breathe, or as breath comes, you can sense that space within the body, and you can sense that same spaciousness just behind your eyes. Just take your attention there. And just allow your attention to rest in that space. Now here is where we come to this transition from being a person, or being a separate entity, someone who's out there chasing, to actually looking inside yourself, noticing this space, this aliveness. That has no particular shape or form or identity. So you can sense the universal. That behind the eyes, inside the body, is just life. There's no one there who owns it or who is it. So as you look inside yourself, as you rest in this spaciousness, see if you can find the person that you've always believed yourself to be. You know, that one that all those thoughts refer to, that one whose past you remember and whose future you're planning for, the one you describe when you tell other people about yourself. As you rest in this space, see if you can find that one. And as you sense into that space, you'll notice not the presence of someone, but the absence of someone. As much as thoughts talk of this person, and as much as those thoughts try to convince you that you are this person you believed yourself to be, notice how you can't find it. You can't find any direct evidence of its existence. So we're not talking philosophy here, we're talking scientific observation. You can only find circumstantial evidence, you can only find hearsay. Which is the mind telling you that this separate person is you, that it exists. And of course, we see separate bodies, we see separate life forms. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the psychological self that we keep alive through memory and anticipation. So as you sit and breathe and rest in this space, without memory, without thought, without words, without anticipation, if you don't refer to any of those things, then who are you right now? Where is that person? So I want to encourage you tonight to drop the quest to fix the person, to improve the person, to get things right for the person. We don't need to fix something that isn't. We don't need to make things right for someone who doesn't exist in reality. So making the bed every day for a guest who never comes, who isn't coming, who isn't here, never will be. All we have is the idea of the self, the belief in the self. And that belief is like a fog that rises up and obscures the experience of this spaciousness. The spaciousness is still there. You're still here, but you can't see it. You forget yourself in that fog. So should we fight with the fog? Should we try to get rid of it? There's no need. There's no way you can fight with it because it's a fog. It's an idea. It's an abstraction. What you can do is turn around and come back inside the house, come back inside your home, inside this body, inside this space, and just rest. In this restful place, thoughts can come, sound can come, feelings can come. But in the absence of someone to claim them, they won't stay, they'll just pass through. So that fog arises with the belief in the self, the separate self. And when you become aware of your own absence, then everything becomes clear. So as breath comes and goes, just look inside your experience and notice that this separate self can't be found. Sense its absence. And this is how I encourage you to practice. This is the most effective way that you can sit. Not sitting and setting goals and thinking, I'm going to practice for this long and that's going to lead to this, and if I do well, then blah, blah, blah. All of that hinges off the belief in this self. You can just cut all that away. Just use the breath to step in, back into that space, rest in it, notice your own absence, and then just laugh and laugh and laugh. It was all a big joke. And then all that's needed is to stay with that and to resist the urging from the mind to introduce some complications, to add something to that, to think about it, to bring something else in. Just feel that space, that emptiness. And whatever mind chatter, whatever nonsense is going on, just let it go on. It's no problem when there's no one there to claim it. It can't cause a problem. So in your sitting practice, sit in that space, notice your own absence. And in your daily life, notice what happens when the fog rises and overtakes you, the awareness. Notice what that's like. Notice as much as you can about it. And when you become aware that it's happening, go back inside and see if there's someone who owns that drama. If there's someone inside you whose business it is. Or if it's just another misunderstanding. And that's it. That's all you need. So I'd like to invite you to come bring your attention back into the world around you. To open your eyes. To get the camera on you if you can manage. If not, just listen, that's okay. I just want to say a few things and then ask for some questions. So this is a subtle shift in emphasis, but it's really, really important because your mind or these I thoughts are feeding off this belief in the separate self. And that's what this whole problem, it's where the whole trouble starts. So if we don't crack that open, then we can do nice practices and feel a bit better forever or for a while. And there'll always be this up and down in practice. So if you find, as I've found for years, that this up and down of everything gets peaceful and I'm going really well, and then there's a bit of a crash and it's like, no, I'm not doing it right. I need to do it better. I need to practice more. I need to get up earlier. I need to whatever. And the mind takes over again for a while, and then we get back into it. And I realized in my own practice that this whole problem comes because there's still the belief in the separate self that's going along the journey, that's going up, that's going down. That I'm doing better in my practice, or I'm not doing well in my practice, or now I'm doing better. And this, the story that I'm doing well, I'm doing better, I'm doing well, stops us from actually looking at this imagined one and going, is that, okay, there's nothing there. So it, but if we start from that point of looking at that, looking for that imagined one and going, oh, okay, there's nothing there, then from there the practices will be really helpful. Then when we're sitting as this awareness and just resting in that and soaking it up and letting it do its work, then the practice is really helpful. And in some ways, when we believe in this imagined self, the practice helps us to get to a point where there's enough awareness to see through that. But you're all at that point already. Otherwise, you would have switched off by now. You probably wouldn't have come. So you don't need to do the practices as a person to improve anymore. You can see straight through that if you just turn the attention backwards, turn the attention inwards. Is this making sense? Not in words, but is it making sense experientially, as like something in you says, yeah, I get that, or not so much? Where are we at? Maybe not. Anyone want to ask a question or comment? If you're not sure how to unmute yourself, you can kind of wave or something. Oh, Ian, hang on. I'll just unmute you. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I was thinking what you said about it being non-goal orientated, because sometimes I have moments where I might lose my cool, and I think, well, I shouldn't lose my cool if I practice meditation. Then I say, well, maybe it's goal or non-goal orientated. It's okay too.
Yeah. And I think if you notice the two elements, that there's this, I like the metaphor of a fog. There's this fog of like the belief in a separate self comes up, and then we go out to defend that self, or we get angry because someone attacked that self or didn't give that self what it wanted. If there's no one in here, if I'm firmly certain that there's no one in here, then there's no one to defend, there's no one to get angry on, no one on whose behalf to get angry. And I also know that there's no one in you or in the other that's doing it. It's just this belief, they're lost in that belief system too. But when this fog rises, the anger can come, and the frustration and the upset and all of that. And then, of course, the mind comes in and says, oh, yeah, I'm not doing so well. If I meditate, I should be better at that. And I should probably read that book again or take that course or whatever. But all of that still hinges on this belief in the separate self. So the anger can arise and we can get lost in it because in that moment we're believing ourselves to be something. But when you step back and ask, and I often ask this because this still happens to me, I'll step back and ask myself, okay, well, who got angry? And I look inside and see, is there someone in there who owned that feeling? Is there someone in there who did that, who was, who owned that? That's probably the best way to put it. And when I look, it's like, oh no, there's just emptiness, there's conscious awareness that got hooked into this story again. Okay. That's okay. But you got to watch the mind, because it'll want to spin it into a story with a past and a future. I got angry yesterday, even though I meditated the day before. So tomorrow I'd better meditate an extra hour So then maybe the day after I won't get angry.
Yes.
But you look in there and you know time doesn't exist. So where is that going to happen? Where did that happen? It's already gone. And if there's no one, if there's no separate self who continues through this story arc, then it's not such a big deal. So yeah, you can. I think you can go easy on yourself safely.
Yes.
Oh, hey Miriam. Are there any other? Who else wants to ask a question? Someone ask a question. Otherwise, I'll read something. Okay. I want to read something that connects with what we've been. If I can find the right thing. Okay, so this is from one of my favorites at the moment. And it relates to what we've been talking about. So your mind does move. In the now, you are both the movable and the immovable. Okay, so we've talked about you are both the this fog of the belief in the self creates all this trouble, and you're also this background, stillness, spaciousness. In the now, you're both the movable and the immovable. So far, but only forever, you have taken yourself to be the movable and overlooked the immovable. So we've taken ourselves to be this thought-based identity that keeps, talking, and we overlooked the background of our experience. We've overlooked you've overlooked who you actually are. Turn your mind inside out. Exactly. So tonight we're using breath awareness to step back into that spaciousness, back into that stillness, and just rest there. Turn the mind inside out. Turn the attention inside. Overlook the movable, and you will find yourself to be the ever-present, changeless reality, inexpressible, but solid like a rock. So when you take attention back into that space, into that awareness, it's ever-present. So he's saying it's ever-present, changeless reality. So everything that arises from that space changes. Thoughts, feelings, bodies, worlds, everything that arises in your awareness. If you look around, everything that you see, hear, feel, experience comes and goes, arises, disappears within that space, changes. But you'll find yourself to be the ever-present, changeless reality. So the space in which all this is happening, the awareness that's watching all of this, inexpressible. So you can't describe this. You can't use words and just say, this is what it is. And that's what it'll be. It doesn't work. But solid like a rock. There's another little quote I wanted to share. Give up the idea of being what you think yourself to be, and there will be no gap. By imagining yourself as separate, you've created the gap. You need not cross it, just don't create it. So a lot of practice is about trying to close this gap between, let's say, resistance, which is where we are, and acceptance, or between, or trying to close the gap between this delusion that we experience and reality. But what he's saying, what Maharaj is saying, is just don't create the gap in the first place. So step back into your own, the absence of the separate self, back into this spacious absence, and just be there without creating these problems in the first place. Don't get sucked into that fog, into that belief in the separate self, and then there's nothing to do. You just let it all unfold. So wonderfully simple. So again, all we need is we can use the breath. You can use anything, but the breath is nice and simple. We just use the breath to move the attention. So, as I said a few weeks ago, we imagine attention as the dynamic aspect of awareness that can be directed here or there. We direct attention back inside. We say inside the body, but I don't know if that's where it's going. We're just back into your experience, back into that space. Draw it back behind the eyes, and just rest in that space. And when you're in that space, use that opportunity to question this forever unquestioned belief that I am this separate so-and-so. So that's why I asked the question, when you're back there, can you find this separate self? Who is it who owns this body, this mind, who runs this show? Who is it who owns this past and this future? Because when we look for that, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Thought arises, and the identity arises with it. They're one and the same. When you're resting in that, and there's a moment of no thought, there's no identity either. There's no self, no separate self. And this is why I say to become comfortable with your own absence, because when you, the separate one, aren't there, everything's fine. All the trouble's over. The trouble starts with you and ends with you. So there's still a sense of, whether you call it presence or you call it aliveness or you just call it peace or stillness, there's still a sense of something in that space. It's not like you've disappeared. It's just that the false has disappeared, the imagined has disappeared, or you know that it's not you. And when you realize that you're not there, it's such a relief. It's such a relief. There's no one there. Whoever did all those things wrong, no one did it. One who's trying to get it right doesn't exist. And the ones around you who you think need fixing or changing or rescuing or saving or getting rid of, well, they're not there either. They're not there. Even in their own experience, they're not there, let alone yours. So what's left to do then? What's left to do? Well, there's no one left to do anything. And so there's nothing left to do. And this is where in Zen and in Taoism and many great teachings, they talk about non-doing. They talk about the art of doing stuff without doing it. And they're not saying don't do anything. They're saying there's no belief in a person. There's no story of a person doing something. There's still activity. There's still stuff happening. But there's no one claiming it and saying, I did that and I deserve to be rewarded, or I deserve to be punished, or I hope no one finds out about it, or it's all gone. It's just the action happens and it's done. There's no one to claim it. So this is the opposite of what you've been told your whole life, which is you are so-and-so, you are someone, and the way to be happy is to enhance that identity, to improve your reputation, to get better at stuff, to be more successful, to earn more money. What we're saying is basically all of that is hinged upon a false assumption that there is someone in there who needs looking after, needs improving. If there isn't one of those, then all you need to do is enjoy what is. And you don't even need to do that. It just becomes, it's natural when there's nothing in the way. So you're here, you're watching this, you're listening to this because that fog is losing its grip on you. Because that false self is becoming unhinged, so to speak. It's probably not the best word, but it's loosening up. And so you can start to sense, as you start to sense your own absence and become more comfortable with that, then you can safely disappear into that. As your attention, you can let your attention dissolve into that, back into that awareness. And then there's still seeing, there's still hearing, there's still talking. There's still, whatever needs to happen will happen. But there's no sense of identity in it anymore. It's just the best thing. The best. Or the best non-thing. So there's incredible simplicity here. You just draw attention back into that space when you're in that space, start to explore and ask questions. And whenever you get lost in that fog of belief in the self, notice the impact it has on your life, your experience. Notice whether it feels natural or unnatural, whether it feels right or wrong. And when you notice that lostness, just come back and check inside once more and ask, who is lost? Is there someone? Who is angry? Who is sad? Who is planning for the future? Whose future is it? Just sit with that question, sit with those questions and just let them do their work. And you'll find that all is well. All is well. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate your being here. Are there any questions before we sign off to our own blissful absence? It's kind of the end of questions. Just, you'd have thought being nobody would be so nice. Well, thank you. Thank you once again. It's wonderful to see you all, or to see your roof or the back of your keyboard or whatever we're seeing. And I hope this serves you on your journey, even though it's imaginary, and that it's of service. And feel free to contact me, and feel free to come back next week and have a lovely, I think it's daytime for all of you, so have a lovely day and maybe go get some sleep. Enjoy the last sunshine. Good night. Not good night. Good afternoon, everyone. See you later.